listening to Your Secret is Safe with Me, non-judgmental talk about infidelity with Dr. Marie Murphy. If you're looking for new perspectives on complicated relationship issues, you've come to the right place.
Days go by, they're crawling by.
Hello, everyone. I am Dr. Marie Murphy. I'm a relationship coach, and I help people who are engaging in something they think counts as infidelity to deal with their feelings, clarify what they want, and make decisions about what they're going to do. And the whole point of doing this stuff is to feel better and live more of the life you want to live. The whole point of cleaning up our messy situations in life is to free up our energy so that we can focus on the things that are most important to us. It's not that infidelity is bad and you need to stop it right now so you won't be bad anymore. That isn't it at all. The point of sorting out your infidelity situation is to declutter your mind and your heart and your life so that you can make the most of your precious existence. And what that means specifically looks different for everybody. So if you're ready to deal with the specific details of your unique situation, you're ready to get to work, I'm here to help you. You can schedule an introductory coaching session with me through my website, mariemurphyphd.com. And I got to tell you, one thing I hear from clients all the time is, yeah, I've been putting off dealing with this for a long time. Sometimes it's weeks, sometimes it's months, sometimes it's years, and sometimes it's more than a couple of years. And what I want to tell you is that if you've been putting off dealing with your infidelity situation, I want you to ask yourself what you've been waiting for and if it's worth waiting any longer. There's a great song by Madeline Peru. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. Madeline Peru, that includes the lyric, if you think that time will change your ways, don't wait too long. If you think that time will change your ways, don't wait too long. The song itself is called Don't Wait Too Long, and go listen to it, but not until after you listen to the rest of this episode. Today, we're going to talk about lying. And I'm sure you don't need me to point out that infidelity and lying go together like champagne and French fries. Delicious. You may be able to have one without the other, but they do pair up pretty damn well. There is so much to be said about lying and about telling the truth and about how this stuff intersects with infidelity. And I want to make it clear up front that I'm not going to attempt to boil the ocean in today's episode. We're going to talk about some important stuff, but I'm not going to say all of the important things because how could I possibly in one little episode? One of the really important things to say about lying, however, is that a lot of people have really, really strong opinions about lying. As we all know, many people, perhaps even you and me at times, get really focused on whether or not it's right to lie or wrong to lie or good or bad to lie or whether it's ever okay to lie. And a lot of people love to make grand sweeping arguments about whether lying is good or bad across all time and space. And, many of us consider these things in very absolute terms, right? We think that telling the truth is good and lying is bad. And that may sound like I'm just stating the obvious here, but one of the implications of this is that many of us freak out if we're doing anything that we think counts as lying. Many of us don't like to lie, and that may be a valid preference. But more than that, many of us think we're doing something really terrible if we're lying. And when we believe that's true, we often get agitated. And if we were already agitated about something, this may have a compounding agitatory effect, which will have an impact on our ability to think clearly. And more specifically, since lying so often goes with infidelity, what I often see is our clients getting worked up about their infidelity, and then they get worked up about lying about infidelity. And this makes it even harder to slow down and make conscious decisions about what they want to do about their situations. So part of the opportunity if you're engaging in infidelity and you're lying about it and freaking out about all of this stuff, is to slow down and take a step back and look at lying in neutral terms rather than the super loaded terms we tend to think about it in. If you have been listening to this podcast for any length of time, it will probably not come as any surprise to you that I don't think it's very helpful to think about any aspect of the human experience as either good or bad. Human life is messy and complex, but actually putting it like that sounds kind of negative, and that's not what I want to convey at all. What I want to convey is that human life is rich and varied and challenging and complicated at times. And because of this, and in spite of this, I want to suggest that looking at lying in super moralistic or dualistic terms, meaning it's either good or bad with no gray area, isn't all that helpful. I think it's a lot more pragmatic and helpful to recognize that there are a lot of reasons why people sometimes lie and a lot of benefits people sometimes get out of lying. Sometimes we lie because we think it's the best possible way to handle a situation. Sometimes we lie because we're scared of what might happen if we tell the truth. Sometimes we lie because we want to have our cake and eat it too. Sometimes we lie because we don't want to hurt other people's feelings. Sometimes we lie because we don't want to have to deal with other people's reactions to the truth, or we don't want to have uncomfortable conversations. Sometimes we lie because we don't have a sense of what's true for us. And this, of course, is just a partial list, but all of these reasons and so many others are perfectly human and perfectly understandable. It is, though, also true that there may be potential drawbacks to lying or to not telling the truth. Most simply, if we think that lying is wrong, we may feel bad if we're doing it, right? And feeling bad feels bad, number one. And number two, the behavior we engage in when we feel bad may have additional consequences for us that we don't like. Prefer to tell the truth, and we're not telling what we consider to be the truth. We may feel compromised or enervated, and that sucks. And the things that we do, the actual actions that we take when we feel compromised or enervated, may create results in our lives that we don't like at all. And this just compounds our problems, right? Or, maybe we don't have any qualms about lying, but we do have a hard time keeping track of the lies we've told. And we find the stress of keeping our stories straight to be a burden. Or maybe we really don't mind lying as long as nobody finds out about it. But if people do find out about it, we really don't like dealing with their reactions to our lying, right? The point is that whether you tell the truth or you don't tell the truth, whether you lie, so to speak, or you don't lie, there will be consequences for you. And I mean consequences in the most neutral sense possible. I mean that there will be outcomes of whatever actions you take, and you may like some of them and you may not like some of them. And it's important to be aware of what the consequences of your actions are or might likely be, and make conscious decisions about you want to do, knowing that there may not be any perfect outcomes. I want to make it really clear that when I talk about the consequences of your actions, I'm talking about the consequences for you and not for anybody else. When I talk with clients about this, they sometimes say, like, wait a minute, don't I need to be concerned about the impact my actions will have on other people? Isn't it bad for other people if I lie? Isn't it better for other people if I tell the truth? Don't I need to be concerned about those things? I'll say two things about those kinds of questions. The first thing is, our ideas about whether or not lying is bad or terrible or okay or justifiable are shaped by culture and society. Our individual ideas about lying and telling the truth are influenced by the time and place in which we exist and the norms of our given context. Our understandings of what counts as truth and what count as lies are shaped by the collective notions we're immersed in. People of different times and places have had different ideas about when it's considered beneficial to tell the truth or modify the truth or withhold the truth, or what even counts as a truth worth sharing. And this doesn't mean that anything goes. It doesn't mean that you don't have to have any standards for your own behavior or any personal ethics. And it doesn't mean that we don't care about the norms of our community. But it does mean that you need to be aware that there are many different ideas out there about what counts as information you need to share versus what it's okay to keep to yourself. You have different ideas about where we should draw the line between privacy and secrets, what kinds of secrets are okay to keep, whether or not a secret constitutes a lie, and so on and so on. So, the overarching point I want to emphasize is that it's important to remember that questions about whether or not lying is bad or telling the truth is good or secrets are okay or privacy is okay do not have absolute answers to them, right? Even the ways that we conceptualize the questions we might ask about these things are shaped by culture and society. And since ultimately there aren't any absolutely unequivocally right or wrong answers about how to navigate telling the truth or not telling the truth or what counts as the truth, it is both our opportunity and our responsibility to make conscious decisions about how we will navigate these matters in our own lives. And if that sounds amazing to you, if that sounds like great news, and you can't wait to get right on it, now that you have this permission, so to speak, go get to work. And if this notion that there aren't any absolute rules for what, is okay in the realm of truth telling or not truth telling sounds terrifying to you, part of what I offer my clients is help deciding how they want to navigate their relationship to truth and lies and secrets and privacy. So if you want support as you do this in regards to your specific situation, schedule a coaching session with me. Now, the second thing I want to say in response to questions about whether or not it's better or for other people if we tell the truth or whether it's bad for other people if we lie is that we can never know with absolute certainty what's better or worse for another person. That just isn't our business in the cosmic scheme of things. And moreover, it isn't possible for us to know what is ultimately better or worse for anyone but ourselves. Many of us try to figure this out, though. We love to speculate about how other people will react to our behavior or how our behavior will impact others. But when we indulge in these kinds of ruminations, what we're really doing is taking our focus away from deciding what's best for us to do. And that is the business that we and only we can attend to, right? And then other people have to take care of their stuff. And when we all take care of our own business, everything works out a whole lot better. Okay, now I'm going to talk about one very common instance in which questions about telling the truth or not telling the truth or lying or what's okay to keep private and what's not okay to keep private come up for my clients who are engaging in infidelity. And the general situation looks something like this. Someone is in the process of leaving a committed monogamous relationship. Maybe it's a marriage, maybe it's not, or they're trying to work up the nerve to begin the process of leaving the committed monogamous relationship. And they've been engaging in some kind of infidelity. So somebody's cheating, quote unquote, and they're married or partnered, and they're either breaking up with someone or they're about to start breaking up with someone. Maybe the infidelity means that they have an affair partner. Maybe it means they've had affair partners. Maybe they haven't had any major relationship or relationships, but they've been doing things that would count as infidelity within the context of their committed relationship. And people in these kinds of situations are sometimes really concerned about what their partner might ask about in regards to infidelity during the breakup proceedings and or what they have to disclose in relation to their infidelity during the breakup conversations. And sometimes people have this concern because the person they're breaking up with already knows about their infidelity or openly suspects their infidelity. But sometimes people have this concern because they think they have to explain why they want to leave their relationship. and they think they have to answer whatever questions their partner might ask them about their decision. Here's the thing with that. When you make the decision that you don't want to be in a romantic partnership with someone anymore, one of the most important things you have to do to take action on that decision is tell your partner this. You then have to do other things to ensure your breakup takes, so to speak. I talked about that in a recent episode on breakups. But the primary thing you need to be concerned with if you want to exit a romantic relationship is telling your partner this. For a lot of people, though, this is a really hard thing to do. And so, what people often do is try to complicate this action item in order to avoid it, in the hope of somehow making it easier later, perhaps. It's really just as simple as saying something like, hey, I've really valued our time together. I care about you so much, but I do not want to be romantically involved with you anymore. And I am exiting our romantic partnership. Of course, there's other stuff that goes with doing this, like dealing with your feelings, but communicating the truth of where you stand in regards to your relationship is really as simple as that. But we often try to make it much more complicated. And if we're cheating on the person we're planning on breaking up with, we may worry that the cheating will become an issue during the breakup, and we may fret about whether or not we should proactively lie or tell the truth if confronted, or if we need to end our affair if we're having one so that we can tell the person we're breaking up with that we're not actually having an affair if they ask, and then have that sort of count as a truth. And sometimes people spend a long time pondering these kinds of possibilities. And ironically, spending time pondering these kinds of issues has the effect of putting off telling your partner the most important truth of all. You may be putting off telling your partner that you don't want to be romantically involved with them anymore. And by not telling them this, you may not be actively lying, but it might be fair to say that you are withholding a material fact. You're withholding the information that is perhaps most relevant to your relationship with your partner. There are lots of other points that are relevant to your relationship with your partner. But in a realm where the whole point of relationships for many people is that both people want to be in it, and that we get to enter and exit relationships at will, the question of whether you want to be with them or not is the most important one for you to answer for yourself and convey to your partner, right? So if you're holding back on sharing this information, the information that you don't want to be with your partner anymore, because you're fretting about whether or not you should disclose your infidelity, you may be missing the forest for the trees. The big point isn't why you want to leave your committed relationship or whether or not your infidelity situation has anything to do with your choice. The big point is that you don't want to be in the relationship anymore, right? All of that said, if you're breaking up with someone and you're engaging in infidelity, you will perhaps want to make some thoughtful decisions about what you want to say about that or not say about that. And these decisions may depend on many factors. For instance, if you are as sure as you can be that your partner doesn't know about your infidelity and you aren't involved with anyone you imagine you're going to have an ongoing future relationship with, you may not see any value in telling your partner that you've had experiences outside of the bounds of your relationship, right? You're breaking up with them. That's the point. You're ending the relationship. That's the point. What good do you think it could possibly do to tell them about the fact that you've cheated, right? Who knows? Remember, you can't know for sure what will ultimately be best for the other person. You can't know for sure whether it's quote unquote better for someone else for you to tell them about your infidelity versus not tell them about your infidelity. But you can make a decision that you think is best for you and be willing to live with the consequences, right? So you may decide that really the only important thing is that you want to leave the relationship and that's it. You may decide that it's not incumbent upon you to tell them anything about your infidelity. And if you feel fine about that, that may be all there is to it. there may not be any other consequences. If you and your spouse or your long-term partner split up, they may never know that you were seeing other people for a while you were married to them or partnered with them if you don't tell them. You may have been really discreet, and it's possible the only way they'd know about what you'd been up to is if you told them. Now, on the other hand, it might be possible that your soon to be ex could somehow find out about your infidelity. Let's say that happened somehow through some very unlikely occurrence. Many things are possible if that were to happen. Your ex might get really upset and they might call you and yell at you and tell everyone you know that you cheated on them. Or they might get really upset and deal with it themselves and say nothing to you ever. Or they might have moved on with their life to such an extent that they're really not all that concerned about what happened in the past. We can never predict with absolute certainty what's going to happen in the future, but we can make our best choices about what we're going to do given the information we have at hand. And then we can deal with the future as we need to. Here's another scenario. Sometimes I'll be working with a client who wants to end their committed relationship, and they've had an ongoing affair with a specific person for a while. And maybe their spouse, soon to be ex spouse, or their soon to be ex partner is clued into this possibility, or is perhaps even fully aware of some of the details of the affair. And in a situation like this, there might be great reasons to tell your soon to be ex more of the truth. For instance, maybe you think it would be more respectful of you to respond to your partner's questions with the truth if they ask questions rather than lying. What I mean is, if your partner says to you when you're breaking up with them, like, hey, is there someone else? I'm pretty sure there is. Please tell me the truth. Or is this about so and so? I know you and so have kind of had a thing going for a while. You might prefer to say yes in those kinds of scenarios for all kinds of reasons. Maybe you don't want to lie when asked a direct question. Maybe you believe it's more fair for your partner for you to take their concerns seriously than to protect your privacy. Maybe you believe it's just the most respectful thing to do, right? Now, here's the really important thing to keep in mind. This is a decision for you. You're making a decision about what you prefer, not about what's right for your partner. You may prefer telling the truth if your partner asks you point blank if there's someone else in the picture. But we don't ultimately know what will be better for your partner. They may well appreciate you telling the truth. That is entirely possible, right? But we just can't know for sure. And it's really important to be clear on that. Here's another reason why you might want to tell the person you're breaking up with the truth if you have an affair partner and you suspect that your soon-to-be ex is aware of this, right? You may have a long-term relationship with both parties going forward, right? You and your soon-to-be ex may have kids together, and thus your relationship as co-parents may go on forever. Or you may want to remain good friends with your soon-to-be ex. Or maybe you're business partners or whatever. Maybe you're going to see them a lot and you want to have a good relationship with them going forward, right? And you also plan to continue your relationship with your affair partner. So it may be, in the most pragmatic terms, simpler to tell more of the truth now rather than lying now and having to clean that up later. But let's say you do this. Let's say you're having an affair and you're ending your marriage or your partnership, and your spouse or your partner asks you about your affair partner and you want to tell them the truth, right? Does that mean that it's incumbent upon you to answer every single question your spouse asks you about, for instance, how the affair started? No. You still get to decide what you're going to tell the truth about and what you aren't. You still get to decide which questions you're willing to answer and which you aren't. But the overarching point, if you imagine having a continuing relationship with both your soon-to-be ex and your affair partner, is that if you imagine that some facts are going to come out eventually, it may be better for you to share them proactively, pragmatically speaking. You could still lie, of course. You might prefer to do that. That's a choice you can make, but considering the long-term consequences might lead you to make a different decision. As you decide what you want to share or not share about your infidelity, if you're breaking up with the person you've been cheating on, you might want to consider that when a relationship is ending, everything is in flux. The stakes of the whole relationship equation are changing. You may have had a whole bunch of, implicit and explicit understandings with your partner in place for many years. But once you initiate a breakup, you enter this liminal space where you're still very much involved with your partner, but not in the same way you were before you set the wheels of change in motion, right? All of the old, rules, whether or not you've been following them, are starting to come off the table, or maybe come off the table all of a sudden by virtue of the announcement of your decision. And so, what I want to suggest is that you get to think about how you want to draw or redraw the parameters of your privacy in a moment like this. You get to think about what it's okay for you to keep as a secret. You get to decide what it's okay for you to not share or share in the context of your relationship coming to a conclusion, rather than in the context of your relationship being something that's continuing indefinitely, right? I see so many people getting very concerned about the feelings of their soon to be ex spouse or partner when they're initiating a breakup and operating under the assumption that they have to comply with whatever requests their partner makes of them if their partner is distraught. Now, here's the thing: you get to do whatever you want. You could choose to do anything or everything your partner asks of you under any circumstances. But do you ever have to do anything for them? No. And you certainly don't have to do anything for them because you are breaking up with them. I do understand why people get into this mindset, though, because often when we break up with someone or we start the process of breaking up with someone, we feel bad. We feel sad. We feel uncomfortable. And then our partner gets upset and we get even more upset because they're upset. We're uncomfortable enough ending a relationship. And then we feel even more uncomfortable because we see someone we care about feeling pain. We may believe that we've caused their pain, and we usually believe that pain is bad. And therefore, we should do whatever it is we can to soothe our partner's hurt feelings. And for some of us, that might mean we get the idea that we have to answer whatever questions our partner asks us about why we want to end the relationship, including questions about our infidelity. And here's the thing: breakups can be excruciatingly sad. And if we're hell bent on trying to make them less sad, we may try to do all kinds of things in an attempt to mitigate that sadness, such as attempting to make our partner understand why we want to end the relationship. And with that may come answering whatever questions they ask us as part of our attempt to help them understand and help everybody feel better because of this understanding, sought after understanding. But is it your job to make someone understand why you want to end your relationship? Is it possible for you to get someone to understand why you want to end a relationship? It may not be. And moreover, the point may not be whether or not they understand why you want what you want. The point may be that they just don't want the same thing. And that is not your problem to solve. One of the defining features of breakups is that you're going from a we situation to a me situation, right? You're transitioning out of, hey, we're in this together, to I'm making unilateral decisions that affect us both, right? And in a sense, that's just the nature of the beast. And it's not a problem that you have to solve. And I want to point out that it may seem like such a great goal to achieve mutual understanding of what's going on and why you feel the way you do and why you want what you want when you're leaving a romantic relationship. But that may not be possible, and it may not even be valuable. And moreover, no matter what truths you tell or withhold may not make a difference in your partner's experience of the situation, or yours for that matter. So beware of letting your partner's response to you break up with them determine your decisions about what you decide to tell them or not tell them about your infidelity. They may tell you that they need answers to certain questions in order to understand your decision and make peace with your decision and move on. They may tell you that you owe them information or you owe them answers. They may tell you all sorts of things, but it's not absolutely true at all that you owe them anything or that you have to answer certain questions. You get to decide how you respond to these sorts of requests. And I encourage you to decide consciously. All right, everyone. We've only scratched the surface when it comes to talking about infidelity and lying and telling the truth in privacy, but that's the only way we can do it, right? One episode at a time, one slice of a topic at a time. There's always more to say about everything. If you would like my help making decisions about how you're going to manage truth telling and privacy and secrets and lies in regards to your infidelity situation, let's work together. I offer confidential, non-judgmental coaching via Zoom, which means that we can work together no matter where you're located as long as you have a strong internet connection. To schedule an introductory coaching session with me, go to my website, mariemurphyphd.com. Okay, thank you all so much for listening. If you've enjoyed what you've heard, I would appreciate it if you would head on over to iTunes and rate and review the show. Have an amazing week. I'll talk to you next time. Bye for now.
Thanks for listening to Your Secret is Safe with Me with Dr. Marie Murphy. Make sure to click subscribe to get updates on our latest episodes.